And dangerous time it is. So, welcome to another episode of From about to say the wrong title, Comic Book Spectrum. I was like, why am I so frantic about Saturday? I don't know. Saturday is going to be a bad day because I have a whatnot show to do plus the normal Saturday show. So that's like two live streams back, almost like back to back.
So we got. Oh, there's Elaine.
Yeah, she's in the chat.
Yay.
She's in the chat. Yep.
Hi, chat people.
Yep. And yes, we got Cliff back today. We got, like I said, we've been recruiting. Eventually, we're going to have a rotating cast here. It's going to almost be like Saturday Night Live on a Thursday.
It'll be like Hollywood Squares, and we have the center square is like the square of honor for somebody. So
yeah, we want to either have like what? Let's see. It's like going really old school. What was his name? Paul Lynn. We're going to have either a Paul Lynn or a Joan Rivers or Whoopi Goldberg, or I could go on and on and on. But for some reason, it's like I used to be able to rattle them off like that. That goes to show you how long I've been watching Hollywood Squares.
Well, Cliff, how's the world treating you?
Cold.
Did you get a lot of snow down there?
Not really, but for the Mid-South area, if they say snow, we shut the entire county down, and everyone bum rushes to the grocery store for milk and bread. So
all the French toast makers are.
Yeah, we had enough snow the kids could run around outside yesterday and play in it, and the dog could look confused when we went outside. But
I saw your pictures. I saw the kiddos. Yeah.
I don't know if it makes me a good or a bad parent, but my two youngest are obsessed with The Last of Us, and they were playing The Last of Us outside. So my middle daughter Grayson is an aspiring makeup artist, and she practices getting her freckles for Ellie from the game just right, and her tattoo on her arm. And my youngest daughter, as long as she gets to run around and cause chaos, she doesn't care.
Makeup, no makeup, just chaos. As long as chaos.
They have played through my copy of The Last of Us 2 at least a dozen times in the last year, and they refuse to finish playing the first game because they don't want to restart it. Like, okay. But yeah, they were hunting for clickers and bloaters yesterday out in the backyard.
Imagination, a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
they are full of themselves. I think they get it from their mom. But, but other than that, just normal nerd life, and try not to let the real world bother you too much. So.
Well, we were just talking before the show. This is a really light comic book week for us. I don't know if you had anything good come through, but
I haven't. My LCS has my wanted poster up. It's been a while since I've been there. I came in there one time because I live in Olive Ranch, Mississippi, and my LCS is further, almost into almost outside of the Memphis area. But he's always been really good to me about not griping when it takes me forever to come up there and pick up my stuff. I was in there one day, and he had a Magic tournament going on, which always scares me to death because those people are so into what they're doing. He actually, when I was getting my pull list, and one of the players said something about my stack of books, and Jason, my LCS owner, looked at me and said, "Cliff is both my best and worst customer at the same time."
Oh, well, you have two titles there, so that's like double jeopardy. So
at least those are the two he calls me to my face. So
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine that LCS having specialized milk cartons with people's faces on there talking about, have you seen this individual?
If he could figure out how to do it, he probably would, because I don't get out much to begin with, but since my health got a little bit worse, I get out a lot less. So it'll be 2 or 3 months in between trips up there. So he's really good to me about it. But I'm waiting for him to snap one day and just come set my house on fire. So yeah. So no, I haven't read anything. I've been catching up on newer old stuff, but I haven't really read. I don't know what's going on this week outside of apparently they're killing Thor for the 900th time. So
they can't kill somebody that they have already proven that is technically immortal, since he is the kind of like the All Father now, since Odin's passing away. He has pretty much all Odin's power, so the only thing you have to do is just take the Odin's rest, and he's back to normal.
Well, and let's not even talk about the fact that his book now is called The Immortal Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Hulk started and everybody else just jumped on board of, there's not even any kind of, and the Hulk, that was a really good series. Al Ewing made it a horror book, and, the Thunderbolt Ross program had captured the Hulk and cut him into pieces in jars, and he came back from that. But a really horrific, he made them pay, it was a horrific tale. But when you go that route and then you start doing all the other characters that way, it's sort of the whole pretense of death is sort of out the window. So
yeah, I'm not, like I've said before, I'm not really that big of a Marvel person, but I read Immortal Hulk because someone compared it to Alan Moore Swamp Thing. I wouldn't go that far, but it was probably one of the best modern books I've read in a while. And so, I was kind of looking forward to Immortal Thor, but I don't think you can catch lightning in the bottle twice with it. Especially after, I think Jason Aaron's run on Thor was really, really good. It's like my LCS was talking to me about it when it was coming out. If it was characters I had more of an attachment to than Thor, Jason Aaron's book Thor would probably have been my favorite book of the last decade. But I don't have that big of a connection to Thor, so it's like, oh, this is cool, but this could have been Animal Man or something, and I'd probably like it a lot more.
Catman.
Yes.
Don't talk bad about Catman. Catman has his place, but then again, I'm one of the few people that I have a problem with Immortal Hulk, only because it changed the mythos of the Hulk.
It did. It certainly did that.
It changed, and it made it believable that he is immortal because of the source of his power, because they talked about what gamma radiation truly was. And I was like, oh, if that's the case, then you got people like A-Bomb and Lyra and all these other characters running around with this ability, which it also makes them slightly immortal. And I was like, yeah, this is now a game changer.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of what they did with it, but I don't know, it's one of those things. It's like, you knew once it was over, and they put the to take the Grant Morrison quote, put all the toys back in the toy box, that the next writer wasn't going to do anything with that. And so it was like, well, that was a cool 50 something issues, but because especially that one scene where it was at the end of the universe and you thought it was supposed to be Franklin Richards, and it turned out the Hulk changed his mind and ate Franklin, and he was the last being left in the universe. It's like, that's kind of cool, but you're not going to do anything with this afterwards. This should have been like, does Marvel have an Elseworlds besides What If?
Yeah.
They don't really need Elseworlds because there's multiple universes in the Marvel universe. They just don't tell you which one is happening in. I mean, that was one of the things that I learned through Dan Slott's She-Hulk. It's like, wait, there are all these different variations that could happen. It's like we just don't know which variation is happening in which storyline at any given time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because depending on who's in charge of Marvel, they either embrace that they have a multiverse or they run from it. I'm like, who cares? There's some people who are not going to read those stories, but there are a lot of people who will. So just don't answer the question if you're that upset about it, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because Jonathan Hickman's run on the Avengers with all the incursions and stuff that led up to Secret Wars was really interesting and a fun book, but you could tell there were some editors who just like held their nose up when it was coming out. So
do you call them editors, or do you call them, if I could say it, Parallax's favorite term that she wants me to always say? Because to me, an editor would have been like more embrace the fact that this is what's going on and see where it lies at with readers, as opposed to hold their nose up and turn the opposite direction.
Editors in general don't have a whole lot to bark about, because until they start actually editing, I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight in what they say. So,
Yep. Kid Loki killed Thor, saved Asgard as a result.
Well, now I don't have to illegally look at it online. Thanks.
I don't know. It is what it is. Yeah. I still like what they did originally when they gave Jane Foster Mjolnir. But then again, original Sin messed up the whole standpoint of what was going on with Odin and Thor anyway. I mean, there's a lot of things that they haven't corrected with Nick Fury. Nick Fury and Owatu messed up a lot of things in the Marvel universe that never truly got fixed after original Sin.
Man, I just couldn't help but laugh. After so long of pretending it was just the Ultimate Universe, they just had to bring Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury into the regular 616 universe. And it was like, oh, it reminded me of like an old soap opera. It's a secret son no one knew about. Okay, but
where's his evil twin brother?
Let's put the original Nick Fury on the moon. Yeah, that's the ticket. Okay.
See, that's what makes me wonder about 616. Because if you remember the original Zodiac, who was actually on the moon? Leo. So you're saying the original, or no, either the original or the second Leo was the original Nick Fury. It's a stretch. And then when they made the story that it was his twin was a member of the Zodiac, I was like, this is a bad way to correct the story and give somebody a Nobel Prize for. This is just poor. This is just poor. It makes sense, but it's just not the best way to deal with it.
Well, they gave themselves the Doctor Doom out for so much now, because for the longest time, if it was a Doctor Doom story that didn't fit, that wasn't really Doctor Doom. It was a Doom bot. Now it's that was a life model decoy. It was just an LMD. It wasn't the real fill in the blank character. So that
even with that being stated, at least with Doom, what Owatu said makes sense. Eventually, it's going to get a point where Doom does win, and Utopia happens.
Yeah.
But until that point happens, he's always going to step in his own way. So, like I said, it's like, oh, that wasn't him as a Doombot. It's like, yeah, that's probably him getting in his own way. And he's blaming it on a Doombot.
Yeah. It's like, what was it in DC towards the early 90s? Everyone was a Manhunter clone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was just... Manhunter series now is so hard to read because there's so many of them now. They got rid of the clones, but there's so many different Manhunters that it's just like, okay, which Manhunter are we talking about now?
Yeah.
And Elaine is saying it's like they don't give out no prizes anymore. Yep.
Yeah.
Why? Because they don't make mistakes.
No, now the people who would get no prizes are called trolls.
Mm-hmm. Where with once embraced, where it's like if you could find the inconsistency and that's the cool thing about the no prize. You have to find the inconsistency, and then you have to provide the solution.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't say that's wrong. You have to say that's wrong, and here's how you fix it. That what makes the no prize so special.
Yeah.
Now you could do it with grammar, or the lack of editing. You could go through and go, well, you dropped this word, and this wasn't the tense that you really wanted for this word. So give me 2 grammatical no prizes and you would fix it by putting this here and that there.
Bull hockey. Yeah. But that was the whole thing about the no prize. It's like there's plenty of people that pointed out different problems with Marvel stories, but only a handful of people actually gave them a proper solution to fix it that they actually liked, and they gave them the no prize. I still have to read my no prize book though. I still haven't read it.
Joe and I were talking before the show. Comic Beat had an article today that I thought was interesting. I don't know this company. Cliff, do you know Bloomsbury or Bloomsbury? Ever heard of that? They do trade paperbacks of or softback books called 33 and a Third, where they look at different artists, musical artists or albums. And you ever heard of them?
I thought you were talking about the old comic strip Doonesbury with cat for a second.
No. Bloomsbury and Marvel have agreed to a multi-year, multi-volume licensing agreement to develop and publish a Marvel Age of Comics series highlighting more than 85 years of Marvel Comics. The books are going to offer unique and accessible entry points into the wide Marvel canon by blending personal narrative with a look back at comic history through the decades. Written by a series of experts, including writers and journalists and pop culture critics. The series plans to be an overview of the overall Marvel Comics history, and is crafted just like their popular 33 and a Third series of books. The topics in each will range from deep dives into a singular comic storyline, or notable runs, or character, and works produced by creators who have made a noteworthy contribution to Marvel stories. So the stories are going to feature looks at some of the origins and evolutions of a particular character through the years. And they're going to have them available in trade paperback and in audio and in hardback. And I thought, well, those will probably be like really expensive. But if it's like 33 and a Third, those, I looked up some prices on those, and you get the ebooks for about $10. And if you want the softback of those, they're like $13. So affordable. And they had a couple of different people, weighing in about how they wanted to cover it and talk about it, like the regular writers that loved Marvel Comics, and certain characters meant something to them. So I'm kind of looking forward to grabbing up a few of those and diving in. So
when are they coming out?
It's supposed to go into effect later this year and next year. We're doing like the next 18 months.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how soon, but I didn't see anything about specific. We'll start with Spider-Man, or I didn't see anything like that, so I'm not sure how far along they are besides just the hashing things out of which characters they're going to begin with. But
I know one thing I would be interested in the timely years, because that's one of the eras that was not really covered in depth.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll go back that far, or if they'll start with the Silver Age stuff, where Marvel really came into prominence.
Marvel history nowadays seems to start with Amazing Fantasy 15, Fantastic Four #1.
Yeah.
And moves forward. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the old timely stuff, or just a whole book on the Atlas Monster era.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
or the original Marvel comics.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, because it's like we don't know what, if I could say the original Human Torch was like the android was truly like back then. We know about Captain America #1, but again, we don't know in depth what they had to go through to make Captain America #1 and everything to that magnitude during the timely years.
Mm-hmm.
Most people know of Captain America 100, but not, like the first 3 or 4 issues of Captain America. Nobody really talks about that.
And
Nobody really. Go
I
ahead.
don't know that it's ever gone over big. Like, there's a niche area for like the Liberty Legion back in the 70s. They published those that were kind of interesting. The Invaders. They tried to do the 12 and take 12 of the characters that were like the least known and try to give them sort of a more of a backstory and it ended up being kind of a Watchmen sort of a thing where they had been on ice for many years and were brought back into the modern day. But that I thought it was a fun little outing. And some of these characters I had never seen in print before, so that was good. But it didn't go over big. It was sort of everybody went, "Who are these people and why do we care?"
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of reflected, at the time. If you look at Timely, their stock in trade was pretty much to go, "What's selling right now? Make a version of that." Well, there's this Flash guy that is part of this Justice Society of America. He seems to be selling pretty well. Make a Whizzer. A what? And a lot of times I don't think in the golden age they put much time into. It's just a copy of that. It's a different version of that character, and not a whole lot of character building. Just that's selling, so we're going to make something like it.
Oh, come on, Clyde. They put a lot of thought into him getting his powers from mongoose blood.
Oh wow, no, that's not going there, because again, I'm just up here thinking about characters like Miss America and that squad that was formed, because it's like the original Submariner it's not the Submariner that we have now, by no means. And then the one kind of sort of romance slash like slice of life book that happened during that time. Give me 1 second here. I think I have it available. Here it is. Because I have not seen this ever been reprinted elsewhere other than Marvel Masterpieces.
Oh no!
I have not seen it published anywhere else other than Marvel Masterpieces, which is the Venus series.
Oh
yeah. This goes, I believe as far as back as Timely.
Oh yeah.
But there's only one volume. This is back, Timely Atlas days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, because that's the era that most intrigues me. More so it's the golden age that nobody talks about the original characters. Then every once in a while the character pops up and nobody knows who it is except for the diehards. And then the diehards, gets all giddy and whatnot, and we're going like, why is this so important? They did nothing to add to the story to make us want to read more.
One of the later what ifs I really liked was, what if the Avengers formed in the 1950s and Venus and Marvel Boy were part of that team? I was kind of wishing that they would, when they had Agent Carter on, I was kind of wishing that they would, and they were kind of giving hints about some of their older characters. I was like, man, that would be really cool if they would do a storyline with that and have an earlier version of the Avengers, call them something different maybe, but no.
That was not the same as when they did the what if that had 3D Man in it, right? Or no, that was Avengers Forever.
I think that was in the what if 3D Man was part of it, I do believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Roy Thomas loved him some 3D Man.
Wait, didn't 3D Man eventually become Triathlon?
They came from the same not so secret organization. I think they were
But it's the same
inspired.
power. It was like the same power. They both had the exact
Basically.
same power. And I remember with Heroes Reborn,
Mhm.
Triathlon was the reason why Cap left the Avengers. Because I'm not the R word.
Mhm.
The Avengers are not the R word. I'm like, where are you going with this? This just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that was that during Busick's run, because he created triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty much the same powers as 3D Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to go dig out my omnibus of that Avengers run now.
I mean, it's just weird, you know. But then again, when you think about the 1950s, it's like it still was during an era where there was not really, if I could say, a lot of integration either. So it's like you bringing something in the 1990s. This is during the 90s. The Busick was run in the 90s, and you're doing something that would have been better back then. It's like, hey, you know, how come there's not, you know, any other nationalities in the Avengers? And I was like, wait a second, we're in the 90s. There has been other members of other nationalities in the Avengers at this point. And you do Heroes Reborn and you come up with that question. I was like, that's just in poor taste. It's just stupid storyline. Stupid way to go with that whole storyline.
Now you know that the only people that can become superheroes are blonde-headed white guys.
No, no. It's not that. You have to have you can't have your blonde-headed white guys without your buxom blonde women as superheroines.
Yeah.
You can't have them without having the other.
Yeah. Speaking of the 1950s, I did recently read one of my favorite Elseworld books again. I reread James Robertson's The Golden Age.
Oh yeah.
And of course, it means I'm going to read Starman again, but
time well spent. Time well spent.
She took it literally. She took what we said literally. Made a blot.
Yeah.
You know, but then again, I still think about people like Doc Savage.
Yeah.
You have to be blonde and tan.
Yes.
Bronzed.
Yeah.
So does your LCS do big time free comic book day down there, Cliff?
My main LCS does a little bit of it, but they're mainly a gaming store.
Okay.
The other big comic store down here that everyone knows, Memphis Comics and Collectibles, they have a really big free comic book day. And, you know, if you buy this much stuff, you get this many free of our discount trades and this and that. It's where I found a lot of obscure books I would have never read before.
Cool.
Like, I think I've got the entire revamped from the early 2000s Magnus Robot Fighter trade series because they were all in the quarter bin. So,
Oh yeah.
And my wife is mad at me about it, but apparently I contributed to Free Comic Book Day so much that I got this huge, and I don't even know where it is right now to show it, but it's this huge vinyl canvas wall poster that's at least 20 feet across.
Wow.
And it's got almost the Alex Ross style art, and it's all of the Iron Man characters you can think of. I mean, it even has the unicorn in the corner. And I was
my.
Yeah. Okay. I want this mainly because of the wacky villains at the bottom, but sure. So yeah, Comics and Collectibles does a big thing. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to put it. It's like my Alex Ross Crisis poster. They're both somewhere in here because I don't have wall space for them. So, but yeah, it's usually a big deal down here. At that store, my main LCS, they do some stuff, but it's not as big because I mean, he's honest about it. He goes, I make way more money off my Magic events than I do off selling comics. So
right.
Which I can't argue with him about. I mean, he takes care of me, and I'm happy, and more power to him. So,
Joe, do you hit any of the free comic book day goings on up in Chicago?
I don't really hit the stores all that much for free comic book day. Most of my free comic book day stuff comes from like the LCSs that I actually buy from like through mail order and stuff. So they hook me up with different free comic book day stuff as a whole. I need to start participating in free comic book day anyway. Once I retire from this job, it's like I have nothing else better to do to start making free comic book day stories and just have it ready to participate.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I saw this week was, of course, Diamond, is going through bankruptcy. And so they had listed some of their assets that would be sellable, that they could sell to pay off their debts. And one of the things that came up on the line items was the rights to free comic book day, because that's their baby. So I got a hold of my LCS to see, because he had said, the owner had talked about when they went into bankruptcy, that was one of the first things he said is, I wonder what they'll do with free comic book day. If they'll come out with books or not, or if what they'll send us, or will they send us anything, but then they sent him some kind of notification that made him think that, well, apparently it seems to be on. So I asked him if he'd heard any more about it. And he said he hadn't, but he got some more notifications of they'd signed on another company to do a free comic book day for them, I think. So they announced that, and he's like, they seem to be going through with it. And so apparently they listed it as a sellable, but that doesn't mean that they have to get rid of it for this year. This year looks okay. And it's probably one of those things somebody will bend over backwards to snatch up and take over. I guess the two big companies, Lunar and Penguin, I guess from the way he goes, Lunar will get it. Well, Lunar will stab everybody else in the heart and grab it. And I'm like, okay. He goes, oh, you don't know. They are like, if you don't go with us, if you go with us, you're exclusive to us. You can't go anywhere else. If you're Lunar, you're us. And, some were like, well, we want to also, we don't mind distributing through you, but we have an arrangement over here that works out for us. And well, then we don't want you. So he's like, oh yeah, they'll, yeah. Because like that.
That's harsh.
I know. He said that dealing with them is exactly like that. And he goes, Penguin is more like, yeah, okay, yeah, you got another arrangement. Okay, we'll fit you in. It'll work out. But he foresees that if anybody gets it, it'll be Lunar, and they'll like outbid everybody and grab it up and then make it just their deal. And if if you're not with them and you go, well, I got free comic book day books, they'll be like, well, great. The next time you decide to have your own free comic book event, you can have them on the table. But until then, get rid of them because you're not us.
But that also makes me wonder if they're going I know with Diamond they do have solicitation. You can't. They do solicit for free comic book day books from smaller publishers. So I'm wondering if Lunar is going to do that, because if they grab it up and it's like, this is our baby and you have to be within our social club to do it. That's like, wow. So that means, would that be like if I could say, a promotional point to be with Lunar? Because if that's the case, it's like, hey, we could guarantee you entry through free comic book day. And because you got the extra publicity from free comic book day, even if you just had the one small book there and you're not ready for like the big time for a monthly series or an ongoing series, you could have like the one free comic book day book in whatever anthologies or trade paperbacks going through them, and you're great and golden because you're theirs. Lane's up here trying to get me to go to a place that does not exist. But I know it's a typo. I know it's a typo, so I'm not going to make her mad. Yeah, but I know where First Aid's Comic, but I don't know where Hugh Park is. Yeah, I know it's a typo. So yeah, FDC needs to be recognized as a national nerd holiday. I don't know because again, if you're going to do free comic book day, then what you're going to do with the more, if I could say, niche ones like Batman Day, Wonder Woman Day, especially Wonder Woman Day. Wonder Woman Day, I have not seen a Wonder Woman Day go past where nobody has celebrated it in the comic book world, and there have always been free books on Wonder Woman Day, always. And those are books that I had to go and literally track down from time to time because not everybody would get them. And then they would forget that they have them. And it was like, what are these extra books in the back? It's like, hey, it's free Wonder Woman Day. That's the reason why you have those Wonder Woman books. You need to distribute them.
Beginning right here.
Jason. Huh. I didn't know they did anything for Wonder Woman Day.
I've seen it mentioned. I don't think I've ever been in a shop that was doing it. At least not with the kind of fanfare that they give Batman Day, at least.
Or Superman Day. They don't give Wonder Woman her due rights. It's like you have to literally be like barge into a store and be like, hey, today is Wonder Woman Day. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's like, where are the free books? It's supposed to be 5 free books that we're supposed to be able to get. And they're like, what 5 free books? And then they think about it, it's like, oh yeah, we forgot about them. Because nobody goes in there and asks for them.
Hey, I was gonna tell you because Joe likes the crossover stuff of animated characters that become good comic book series. David Pepos is doing the Space Ghost books that I really like. I think he's the one that they've also got to write a treatment, a Dynamite for Captain Planet, a new Captain Planet look he looks quite different. He's got a beard and he's definitely changed some from the aspects of the animation series, but I trust Pepos with about anything, so I'm anxious to see what he does with it.
I'm waiting for my book. I'm waiting for the book to happen. If it comes out, I'm on top of it.
Yeah.
If Pepos does Birdman.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the series that's just so wide open.
Oh yeah.
All the characters being in such a way where there's nothing that's really overly defined for them, for the organization that Birdman is a part of. There's a lot of nice creativity that could come out of it.
Stuff that needs to be filled in and has I don't remember them doing anything with it as far as Future Quest, where they had all of the Hanna-Barbera characters. I don't remember it being
they did more with Galaxy Trio, which was a part of that cartoons lineup. They did more with Galaxy Trio than they did with Birdman.
Yeah.
I know they did a couple of Birdman books, but I don't think they did a lot with it. And I'm sorry, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law is the first thing I thought of. I thought that show was so goofy.
Oh, it was very goofy, but you have to understand, it's like, what does a superhero do after he retires?
Yeah.
It's like he became a lawyer. I was like, okay, it was very goofy and everything, and it just like.
And some of those cases, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, yes, this definitely needs to go to litigation here. So,
my wife and I bonded over Space Ghost Coast to Coast back in the day too. So,
and see, I was like outraged when that first. I was like, "That's my guy."
That show to me, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, was not as great as what people made it. But my favorite episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast was when Space Ghost met Space Ghost. If you understand what I mean, it's like the current voice of Space Ghost met the original voice of Space Ghost, and he interviewed him.
Yeah.
That was just, it's like, it was just so hilarious and off the wall. It's just too ridiculous.
But my friends were quoting it, younger friends were quoting the Space Ghost Coast to Coast stuff, and I'm like, so then I watched it, and then I was like, this is great. So I'm one of those weird, I like both of them. But Pepos is he really stepped it up into being a more mature take of the character that works without losing any of the charm that he had as a animated character either. So it's really it's a great continuation of the character for an older audience.
Mm.
You know,
And my youngest daughters love Batman Brave and the Bold, the cartoon.
yeah,
And the episode at the beginning of it is where Batman meets Space Ghost.
yes,
Is like one of the favorites around here. So
we used to talk about that when they were doing the Warner Brothers crossovers and the Hanna-Barbera crossovers with regular DC characters, the issues, one shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I would bring that up every time of, well, it's like Batman and Space Ghost and Batman Brave and the Bold. And there's always one or two people that go, what? What? That didn't happen. Oh yeah, it did
happen.
You got to watch it.
Just like the one that people keep denying that didn't happen in Batman Brave and Bold. Batman versus the Music Meister.
Yeah.
Batman singing in a musical.
Yeah.
That happened. It's like, no, it didn't. It's like, why would they get Neil Patrick Harris to be the Music Meister out of all people?
Mm-hmm. I know that it's blasphemy to say anything bad about Batman the animated series to most people, and I did enjoy that cartoon. But if you held a gun to my head, I'd take Batman Brave and the Bold every time. I loved that show. Yeah, that was my Batman when I was growing up.
Yeah,
so I like that a lot better than. Sorry, but I know that a lot of people like him, but I blame Frank Miller for the last 40 years of asshole Batman. I liked him when he actually had friends and smiled every once in a while. That's why I like Batman Brave and the Bold. So,
put it this way, I would take the finale over Batman Brave and Bold over the animated series any day. Because that whole finale, that 2-episode finale, spoke volumes about how important Batman was to the DC universe at that time, because they went back to the more campier version of Batman, and it made sense.
Diedrich Bader did a great voice as Batman's voice on that. It took me forever to figure out who was doing the voice, and then I was like, he's wonderful. This is quite good for that.
You would have never known that it was the same guy that played in the Drew Carey show.
yeah. Or the best friend in Office Space. What would you do if you had $1 million? You know what I'd do if I had $1 million? 2 girls at once. I think I could get that done if I had $1 million. that guy. He's that guy, But he's Harvey Dent in the Batman current animated series now. And completely different take, completely different. Because I wondered if he would sound more like, is it going to sound like Batman talking to the new Batman? But he's had and he's kind of in bed with whichever criminal faction will help him get elected. He's not above that. So he's definitely a compromised kind of character. But again, excellent characterization of a Harvey Dent that is on the fast track to becoming a bad guy.
Right. And that's what I like about it is Harvey Dent before he became Two-Face.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like in that dilemma of like straddling that fence, because he knows,
straddling.
He
is
knows
right
that it's like, if I go a little bit too far this way, I'm corrupt. But if I go a little bit too far that way, I violate all the agreements that I made with these factions.
Yeah, my oldest is she gets really riled up when they try to go back and show old Harvey Dent, and they try to make it like he was this fine saint of a person until all this happened. She always screams, "Have they not read The Long Halloween?" Which she rereads religiously every Halloween.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, she's not a fan of Saint Harvey. So
I wonder what she would think about Flashpoint, about Harvey's wife. Because remember, in Flashpoint, Harvey's dead. And who takes over as Two-Face? His wife.
I blocked a lot of Flashpoint out of my mind.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Batman. I care less about Bruce. I have a very big disdain about Bruce because Bruce is a poorly written character in my eyes.
You'll notice
Thomas Wayne is my Batman.
Yeah, on our thumbnails, whenever it comes up like a Bat theme or Bat family theme, or we did not too long ago we did the pets, and Joe was Ace Bathound, but the symbol is always the Thomas Wayne Batman, not the Bruce Wayne Batman. I fixed that.
I think the best Batman for me, aside from and it's coming out, the sequel's coming out soon. I love Hush. My favorite Batman is Bronze Age Batman when he was still living in Wayne Tower with the big tree. And then right after Crisis, before Dark Knight Returns, when they weren't sure, do we write him as a new Batman or the original Batman? Because he was more of a believable character and more, I hate using this word for comic books, but he was more, he felt more genuine as a real character. And then it was like, well, here comes Dark Knight Returns in year one, and he can beat everybody up, and he's an a-hole all day. That's Batman. Because I get really upset when I hear people say, well, he's not that much different than the Punisher. It's like, that's the problem. If you think he's not much different than the Punisher, you've only been reading current Batman. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They haven't read Old Detectives where he was literally more of a detective than what we got now.
Yeah, or
that's one of the reasons why I love Flashpoint, because Thomas was the doctor who played multiple roles. I mean, technically, he could have been a crime lord of Gotham, but he plays all sides.
I think the biggest thing that turned me off to Flashpoint, aside from what it led to, was it was so obvious. They're like, let's do our own Age of Apocalypse in DC. How can we do this? All right, well, let's do this and throw the Canterbury Cricket in because they were in England in Age of Apocalypse 2. Just there, Flashpoint, go. I just make your own thing. It didn't have to be a copy, and it rubbed me the wrong way when that was what it was. So obviously, what it was.
A lot of the stuff in the main storyline they could have kept. But when they did the Flashpoint Beyond series, that's when I really fell in love with the Flashpoint universe, because they fleshed out a lot of the characters better.
Yeah, that's in
Flashpoint Beyond. And even though it was a 6-issue series, it was just so better fleshed out because you get to see all of the relationships here, especially between him and Superman.
I will get to it in a couple of years. It's in my 12 long boxes back here somewhere.
Because him and Superman, it's like they know Sabe. One true Superman will kill Thomas if he crosses that line.
And Flashpoint made Barry Allen a villain. If you follow the story, everything that happened was his fault because he was selfish. And I was like, if that's what y'all are going to do with him, you should just left him dead. More people liked him then than they do now.
Well, it was more than just that. It made Barry Allen the villain. It proved that Reverse Flash was 100% correct. Because he told Barry, you can't undo what I did. He told him straight up. It's like, I've been in the Speed Force a lot longer than you, and you cannot undo what I did. There would be serious consequences if you did. And you try to keep pushing that thought out of Barry's mind, but no, what did Barry do? Became hard-headed. I'm going to do it anyway. I want to save my mom.
What was the
anybody would have gone ahead and saved their mom. It's like Dawn was like, do it and see what happens. And if you do the double whammy, if you save her, stop me, and kill me, it's going to be hell to pay. It's going to be hell to pay on your side.
Flash around and find out, right?
Flash around and find out. Yep, exactly.
Reverse Flash's quote was, "You basically took a sledgehammer to the windshield of time and space." Is how we describe what Barry did?
Yes.
Yeah. Which the real Flash, Wally West, that wouldn't have happened to because he knows what he's doing. So again,
Wally has been in the Speed Force a lot longer than all of them combined. And when they killed him off the way that they did, I was pissed.
I mean, it's like the Barbara Gordon thing. Barbara Gordon was Oracle longer than she was Batgirl. Wally West was the Flash longer than Barry Allen was in real world time. It's a lot of the people now that read comics grew up with Wally as their Flash, or they grew up watching the Justice League cartoon where Wally was the Flash on it. Just like I didn't know about this until I talked to a friend of mine. A lot of people's first exposure to DC was the Justice League cartoon. They were upset when they brought Hal Jordan back because Jon Stewart's a Green Lantern.
Yeah.
They didn't know there was a Hal Jordan. Oh, yeah. Some
of my friends that are 40-somethings, Kyle Rayner is their Green Lantern, and they're really pissed because you hardly ever see him. So
I didn't like Kyle. I was a Hal fan. But he grew on me over the years with what they did with him, and before Jeff Johns became what he is now, when he made that distinction between each of the Green Lanterns of Earth before there were 80 of them, it made me appreciate all four of the main Earth Green Lanterns more, because you had to have all four of them for there to be for it to make sense. So I like that. But yeah, when they first brought Kyle in, I was like, "Where's Hal? I don't like this."
Each one brought something different to the table, and that's what the balance of having that ring was. And Johns did the one thing that I never thought that any writer would have done, which was to pay homage to the original, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, about the legend of the Shillelagh. It's like we would never go back to that standpoint where our lawman becomes that cruel. So when Hal became Green Lantern, the ring changed. You like Alan Scott better?
I always like Alan Scott best. Yeah. Once I started reading more Alan Scott, I was like, yeah, I like Alan better than I like these other guys.
I didn't like Alan Scott all that much, but he was a different time frame in a different era.
Yeah, I think what really put him over the tipping point for me was James Robinson's Golden Age and All-Star Squadron. The way he was written in both of those, I was like, yeah, this is Green Lantern. I like this.
I remember
he was very so limited, and that's what made me not like him. He was too limited.
Well, as a little kid, that was the first time that I saw, except for the Justice League, Justice Society stuff. I think that I may have read the Green Lantern. I think I read the Green Lantern before, where they had the two Green Lanterns cross over. Alan Scott came into the Hal Jordan world and teamed up. Those are some of the first Green Lantern stories I read, and I thought it was fascinating that you could have these two characters with similar powers but different origins, and yeah, when it came right down to it, I remember thinking I would draw a lot of my favorite characters, and I got to where I would draw Alan Scott more than I would draw Hal Jordan's Green Lantern, because I thought it had a cooler costume, even though it was old fashioned and the color scheme was awful. But it's like, yeah, I really liked him.
It's something about those Golden Age costumes and the simple wackiness of them that draw you to them more. Like the original Starman's costume is I mean, it's
yep, that's the Red Robin.
Yeah.
My custom Captain Action Earth 2 Robin. Yes.
Every time I'm on with you, I look at that in the background, Clyde. I'm like,
I moved him over. I had him over here, and I've got my regular.
Yeah, we got another Captain Action. It looks like a Captain Action that's still in the box.
Well, the box is a reproduction, but yeah.
Okay.
And
there's
my favorite, Justice
Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Yeah. My useless Green Lantern trivia is: did you know that Hal Jordan was not the first pick for Abin-Sur's ring?
Mm-hmm.
In storyline, it was Dick Grayson.
Ah.
He was just too far away. Hal was closer.
But why did the ring? My question to you is: why did the ring make Hal fearless? The ring changed him because Hal did not meet all the qualifications that Abin-Sur said. It made that last modification about him and his standpoint of fear and willpower. That's the part of the story that I never understood.
Yes. You can tell us, and you'll give you a no prize for it.
I don't know, but like I said, that's just one of the things that I just never understood about the whole thing about Hal. That's the reason why I have a soft spot for Kyle. Kyle learned on the job training. Kyle had no one to teach him how to use the ring. I mean, even with the fact that he had other Green Lanterns that he could have gone to, everything that he learned on his own. And that what makes him unique in that aspect here. But man, it was a drain going through that hero's journey with him. It was a drain. It was not an easy read. And it definitely wasn't for a lot of us old schoolers. But once you get past that journey and you saw how powerful he became because of what he had to go through, I understand why people love Kyle. I mean, he went through a lot. Still not John Stewart. That's my number one. John Stewart's still my number one.
My only real complaint about John Stewart is when they run out of character ideas to move him forward, they always go back to, oh, well, you blew up that planet because you're arrogant. Like, man, Hal Jordan's committed genocide like 1,000 times. Leave this poor man alone.
they constantly do it to John Stewart because it's like, John, you're a military man. You understand, casualties and major loss. You shouldn't have done that. Now go back to the back of the bus. That's like, stop doing that. Stop doing that. It's like, yeah. He was the only one that really understood the detail of what you can do with the ring.
He's also
that he made with the ring had so much detail and so much intricacy that it's like, okay, if he makes a tank, it's like you're literally fighting a tank with all its armaments and everything. You just couldn't just go up to it and just blow it up.
Yeah, that's that was the thing that I think it was John's who brought up. John Stewart's an architect, so all the stuff he makes from his ring, you literally see it being built from the ground up. Guy Gardner is more emotional and explosive, so it just like explodes forth from the ring. And Kyle's an artist, so all of his stuff just appears, like straight from his mind. And I always thought that was such a neat touch. And then, of course, because it was in Green Lantern Rebirth, we had to, Hal just did what needed to be done to get the job done. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's what the ring allowed him to do, because the ring changed him. He was essentially the ring. That's why, when he became Parallax, it's like, yeah, nobody could beat him because their original Abin-Sur ring made him that way. What are you going to do when the ring allows, takes off the safety? There's no governor anymore with him.
Now, I do have to admit, I have some beef with John Stewart because he killed Mogo.
The situation,
I know you had to do it.
The situation was messed up in the first place. I'm not going to say that he was right, but I'm not going to say that he wasn't wrong either. It was just a messed up situation that they put him in, and he had to make that command decision.
He still pulled the trigger. So it's like, nah, you killed Mogo, and we're not cool. I'm sorry.
I mean, I get you. I was like, I get you. I can still hand you a beer and be like, we're still friends after this. But it was just the situation was just so messed up. It's just like,
Yeah.
I wish that time could go back where he could just rethink that decision.
Mhm.
One of the groups that I'm a part of, and I can't remember which one, if it's a Silver Age characters or it might be dedicated just to Green Lanterns. I'm not sure, but they dropped a thing in this week that said, you know, put down in the comments your favorite Green Lantern, and tell us why they're your favorite. And so they had all the different green. Some of them were like other members of the Green Lantern Corps. Kilowog was there, and Chip, and just all kinds of Green Lanterns. And
Speaking of Kilowog,
yep. And I thought I came really close to putting in Hal Jordan as the Spectre, because I was like one of the 5 people that really liked him as the Spectre with the spirit of redemption after the 0 Hour storyline.
but he didn't have a ring. He didn't have the ring while he was Spectre.
Didn't need it. And a lot of the Spectre
he
powers,
was Spectre. Why would he need it?
I know he didn't. But a lot of the Spectre powers that he used initially he used them like the ring, because that was what he was used to, and I love that nuance of it. But he was a Green Lantern, so you can't say he was not my favorite Green Lantern to put into that category. But I was like, oh, that would be like, it's sort of like going, oh, look, this is one of those topics that is kind of warm, but it's not really on fire yet. Nobody's really killing anybody over it or talking about physical bodily harm. But if I put this character in, there will be. So, yeah, I won't do that.
Didn't his Spectre costume even have the lantern symbol on it?
Yep.
When he was,
kind of.
Yeah, it was like a lantern necklace that kept his cloak on him when he turned into Spectre.
Yeah.
Now, I did like in Rebirth when he was still the Spectre for a few issues. They tried to go to the baseball game, and everybody in the crowd kept coming up to Hal and confessing their sins to him. Like, okay, now that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I hated the 0 Hour making him into a bad guy, so that helped kind of prep for his stint as, and then he guest starred in the JSA title that was big at the time. He was in there for a few as the new Spectre, and that was good team ups, worked out well. So I like it, and I have played that character in online role play games with people running at their approval, because they don't just let anybody play the Spectre or the big gun characters. But we had a team up with him and Zatanna for a big, long, multi-week adventure thing that worked out really well. So, but yeah, it was one of my favorite versions of a Green Lantern.
the Mr. Mind Cheat is cute.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I mentioned him in my review tonight, in fact. I had noticed your shirt.
I'm a fan of Mr. Mind.
Yeah. The world's wickedest worm.
I know a lot of people when 52 finished were mad that Mr. Mind was one of the big bads in it, but I was like, that's perfect for this entire wacky story.
But the thing about it, they don't understand how powerful Mr. Mind really is.
Yeah. One day I will own at least one original copy of the old Monster Side of Evil from back then. I'll probably have to sell a child for it, but I will own it. Yes. Yeah.
But getting back to the whole thing about Spectre, Hal Jordan and Spectre, that the one thing that always boggled my mind, and I'm glad that they did everything correctly with it, is that Spectre really didn't turn on Hal. It's like the Spectre kind of needs like guidance, especially in situations where it's just beyond recourse of repentance. And how being affected by the ring, he wouldn't be the greatest voice of reason or humanity. But I don't know, it's just like, it just speaks volumes that if I could say, the combination of the two worked out the way that it did. unlike the next host. And the next host, to me, which would have been perfect, but the Spectre kind of rejected him because the Spectre didn't understand the point of view that the next host had. But it makes me go back to Kingdom Come. Because you remember, Kingdom Come before, I forgot what his name, before he died, because Spectre was going to be released again to the wild.
Jim Corrigan.
Yeah, Corrigan. When Corrigan died, it was like Spectre had a lot of respect for Corrigan.
Mm-hmm.
And Spectre was like, about to be, be released back into the wild once you pass away, this, that, the other. Is there anything else that you need to show me before I go into final judgment if the world needs it?
Yeah. It was Christmas Allen was the next host, right? The Gotham detective.
Yeah.
And then he got New 52 and no one's ever seen him since.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And that story would have written itself because it would have gave Spectre a different perspective on life about situations. Like, every criminal situation is not as black and white as it seems up under him.
Yeah, I liked the idea of a new host for the Spectre. I just felt bad because it seemed like for a while there, the Spectre went from being like the guy you turn to in the DC universe or you're afraid of to he became like, okay, this is our new crossover villain for this event. He's got to beat up the Spectre to get street cred.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I forgot what series it was, but I love seeing fights like Spectre versus Naboo. I remember, I don't know which storyline it was, and it was like a multi crossover across the whole DC universe because it got to the point where Naboo went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and Shazam had to do something about it. So Shazam, using all of the power that was in the Rock of Ages to try to fight Naboo. And he was holding his own up to a certain point, and Naboo got the best of him. And in a last ditch effort, I believe it was Alan that says, like, look, Spectre, we need you now. I'm going to release you at full power. And he went after Naboo. That fight almost destroyed several cities.
Was that the Battle for the Helmet series?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that series. It had Sargon the Sorcerer in it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, wow, this is how Spectre is supposed to be. The only thing that was missing was not Phantom Stranger. I forgot what his opposite was. Spectre's opposite.
In some ways, Eclipso is because he was a failed Spirit of Redemption, but I don't know if that's who you mean.
Well, technically, Spectre is Wrath of God.
Right. And
I forgot who was Mercy.
I don't know.
It's like at first I was thinking it was Phantom Stranger, but I don't think Phantom Stranger was Mercy. I don't think it's Deadman because Deadman, he, whatever mission he goes on is just whatever mission that he was just assigned to. But I forgot who was the DC version of Mercy, of the higher powers Mercy.
It was Mercy Graves from it was Lex Luthor's bodyguard.
Who I still blame Lex Luthor for allowing her to get killed the way that she did.
I would say maybe Lady Xanadu, but I don't know if she's that powerful. So,
one of my favorite memories.
She says she wants to Wrath of Nod.
Of the Spectre is the Swamp Thing annual where the Phantom Stranger is taking Swamp Thing to heaven, and they're talking about we're looking for someone, and they pan out and there's just these little specks walking on the Spectre's face. Like that's the coolest thing.
I remember the DC DC Comics. What did they call it? When they had it wasn't the Brave and the Bold like Batman. It was Superman.
DC Comics Presents.
DC Presents, yeah, DC Comics Presents, where they had Supergirl had been knocked for a loop in a fight, and she basically was going faster than the speed of light, and Superman was trying to catch her, but she kept speeding up, and suddenly she's crossing dimensions and everything, and then all of a sudden she disappears, and he's like putting on speed to try to catch her, and all of a sudden there's the Spectre going, sorry, she's gone to a place that nobody living can go, and she's like she's in stasis, so she's not really conscious, but he's like, you can't go there, Superman, I'm sorry. And Superman goes, move or I'll move you. I'm not leaving. Yeah.
But that would have been my reaction as Spectre.
Oh yeah, no. I understand your concern. However, you can't go where she is going. And so they have this standoff, and you have one of those moments where he picks Superman up and just drops him into his eye. And he's like, you are Superman. You are mortal. I am not. And finally he goes, well, I need to get my cousin, I need to bring her back. Can you please help me? And the Spectre goes, absolutely. All you ever needed to do was ask. But it was that humbling moment for Superman,
That ego was like, I will move you.
Well,
like,
yeah.
Spectre was like, boy, just a laugh, like, you silly fool.
He understood, but it was a chance. It was an object lesson of, I know that you're upset and I know that you're hurting, but you have limitations. You are mortal. But I love that. I always thought that was, and he didn't gloat. He didn't laugh. He didn't gloat, but he showed him exactly what the difference was. And it was just a very well written exercise. Like some of my favorite, my two favorite Justice Society people are the Spectre and Wildcat, the guy with all the powers, and the guy that says, "Oh, you wait until the Spectre shows up when the stuff gets really deep, and then you hope you don't crap yourself." It's the street level versus the big guy, the big guns.
It's like, hey, I could only go so far with my fist. We just need the big guns to come out. I'm going to do so much with my fist. That's it.
And they're both characters that only occasionally get a really good spotlight story. And when it's done well, that's just my favorite. That's my Spectre spotlight story. I think the best Ted Grant one is where he's alone in the Justice Society headquarters when the Injustice Society comes to at Johnny Sorrow's behest, I think, to steal something from their museum. So they're like, it's only Wildcat. We'll have to get rid. He doesn't have any powers. We'll get rid of him. And he takes them all to school. It doesn't. He's definitely hurt, but he's already got like a broken arm. That's why he's there. Remember?
Yes. And he was upset because he thought it would be, once he finished beating them all up, he's like, yeah, it might be too late to go see Selena now.
To call her back.
Yes.
She was on the phone with her when, he was in a bath. He was he's one man in an Egyptian cotton bath towel. I think you guys can take him. Because he was taking a bath talking to Selena Kyle on the phone when they came in. But knowing the building and having duked it out with bad guys that were much more powerful than him before, it's one of those spotlight moments that you just go, this is why he still wears the cowl and still goes out on missions. He's that good.
And that issue also had a cameo by the Red Bees in it too.
Yes.
That's the reason why I respect Ted in such a way where he's got to be the best trainer for all street level heroes in the DC universe. Yep, anyone that comes across him and he actually he trains them to be the best version of themselves that they can be, because that's just the way that he performs.
Yeah.
And it looks like we got Parallax Spectre up in here talking about Elaine looking rather failed and pasty over there. in the bottom slot. So
It happens
she knows
sometimes.
that is you, Jeff. She knows. She just saying that, just like I'm not on camera tonight. Technical issues.
It's soon to be remedied. It sounds
Yes.
like.
And I've always been a fan of Wildcat, and as a mentor and a guiding voice for the heroes, I always liked him. But as a lifelong martial artist and athlete, the idea that all you have to do is learn how to box is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
True. I always thought it was more like
Wildcat. I love me some Wildcat, but I'd put him on his back and choke him. And it's just I can't deal with that. That part of my brain won't shut off.
I always thought he was kind of like the MMA fighter before there was MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Although he doesn't have this martial arts like a real top of the line martial artist would. I've always figured. I mean, you see him he does wrestling holds and stuff too. So it's mixed martial arts.
It's my same problem with somehow Captain America is supposed to be the best hand-to-hand combatant in the Marvel universe. Like he's been frozen. That's always been the thing because it's always who would win, Batman or Captain America, and because Cap is it. And I'm like, that man was frozen in ice through the entire time that they learned how to fight. This man knew how to box and throw a shield. That's about it.
T'Challa's father sent him back running when he first got to Wakanda in hand-to-hand combat.
That's one of those
He's
things.
Not the best. He's not the best in the Marvel universe. Nowhere close to being the best in hand-to-hand.
Well, it's no different than people gloss over that Deathstroke knocked Batman out with one punch. We don't talk about that because Batman's Batman now. Same thing. Captain America's.
Well, that's as Paralyzed Spectre would say, that's the Church of Batman being in denial. It's like, how does Batman, prepare for a punch like that? He doesn't. He gets knocked out. At the end. He doesn't prepare for something like that.
Yes. Yeah, no, I just like I like Ted, but it's always bothered me. It's like that's the one mentality that's still stuck in the 1950s in comic books, whereas the boxer is it. I'm like, no. Oh, there's a reason they rigged Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki. No, stop.
There's now you're making me think about some other stuff here, like characters like Karate Kid. Who to me should be the best hand-to-hand combatant, second to Wonder Woman in the DC universe.
Because he's a space ninja, so he learned all of it.
Well, he's learned every type of technique, and he can analyze it on the fly. So he goes against Ted. It's like, oh, boxing. My counter moves are this, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
It's like using the comic book logic of what they give you. Taskmaster should be the most dominant fighter in the Marvel universe if he really can just see something one time and he's learned it. Well, he would donkey stomp all of them, but we don't talk about that.
Well, we don't talk about it because we don't know how much has he seen in his lifetime. We don't know. That's the escape. That's the escape or the out that they give writers. We don't know what he has seen, but again. He fights Cap. He fought Wolverine. He fought all these high-level people. Technically, there's no one out there that could really touch him unless it's somebody brand new that he hasn't seen.
Yeah, so but that's my pet peeve with comic book logic from my real world experience.
Yes, there is a character in the Legion of Superheroes called Karate Kid.
Practitioner of super karate.
There's been at least two of them.
Yeah.
But boxing is the ultimate form of fighting in the universe. Not in the Marvel universe.
No.
Not in the Marvel universe, because again, must we go back to what was that Thing Annual 10? What almost beat the champion of the universe? It wasn't boxing. It was wrestling. Ben Grimm almost beat him with wrestling. Everybody else that went in there with all these different types of techniques, champion of the universe, beat him down, beat him down with the power gem.
Yep.
Because boxing.
Boxing.
Yes. Look up 1970s Karate Kid.
Yeah,
will do. Yeah, Batman with prep time can totally whoop Taskmaster because fucking the Church of Batman. Yeah.
Well, they DC has their own sort of version of Taskmaster, Prometheus, and he beat down Batman once, but then it's like, oh well, Batman learned how to stop him now, and it will never happen again. I'm like, okay.
No, again, that's going to be like the battle that never ends. It's like the more that they fight against one another, it's going to be like, okay, Prometheus wins the first time, Batman wins the second time. Prometheus wins the third time, Batman wins the fourth time because he has prep time to counteract what Prometheus did to him the time before. So it's just weird. So it's like, yeah, in the Marvel universe, clawing folks is a fly skill. Yeah. Yeah, no thing annual 10 you dark Marvel 2-in-1 annual 7. Thank you. You could no, she made sure that I got the right issue. So she knew exactly what I was talking about.
So we're into our second hour, guys.
Yeah, it's comic book review time. So I'm not sure if any of you got anything, because I know I don't, and I know I got something queued up for Clyde here. So
I do have. Cliff, do you have a review?
Not a real in-depth one. The most recent things I've read are I'm a decade behind, but I started reading IDW's Transformers, which I love. I have some friends who didn't like it, but I was like, this is Transformers. I love this. And what are those? I've started, like I said the last time, I've been reading DC versus Vampires and Tom Taylor's Nightwing. And I'm just getting started on both of them, but I will give Tom Taylor all the monies in the world to keep writing Nightwing until I die. That's
he's really good, isn't he?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm also reading his DC stuff, which is different than the way he writes Nightwing, but it's just as good, just in a different way. And Tom has restored my faith in comic books with his Nightwing, and I know it's for a while it was a hot button subject, but his John Kent Superman was a really good story from whatever. I haven't read all of it, but what I've read is really good.
they aged when they aged him up. Yes.
Yeah, and
some of the moral dilemmas that he went through was good, but some of the other political aspects, people had a problem with.
Yeah, I like the fact that they brought up in both books, because obviously he wrote both books, Superman was a mentor to Dick Grayson just as much as Bruce Wayne was. So
yes.
Dick, I'm not going to be here for my son. Can you return the favor and be that for my child? I'm like, that I didn't tear up at all over that at all or nothing. So
lies.
Yeah, that's the only review I have. Read IDW Transformers and anything Tom Taylor writes.
I was going to ask though, Transformers. Now, have you read any of the crossover Transformer G.I. Joe stuff that they've been coming out with this last year?
I've not read any of the new stuff since it went to Image. I have read some of the stuff when IDW still had the entire Hasbro package. And I enjoyed it. It's a decade. It's over a decade old now. I'm not spoiling anything. I liked how they tied in all the Hasbro properties into a one cohesive thing, like the Visionaries that me and 5 other people remember.
Oh, I remember that.
I remember the Visionaries.
Just like I remember the Inhumanoids.
There are 3 of us then. So they tied that into the more overarching Cybertronian mythos, and it made sense, and I liked that. And I liked what they did with the G.I. Joe. I didn't read all of it because I'm that dork. I only read when Larry Hama's writing G.I. Joe. So if he wasn't writing it, I didn't read it. But yeah, I haven't read any of the new stuff yet, but I do have, I think, all but one of the new issues of G.I. Joe. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, IDW stuff with Transformers is probably my favorite, because I kind of like with G.I. Joe, I liked the comics better than the cartoons when I was growing up. And the IDW stuff felt like the comics when I was growing up, mainly because in the comics, no matter what they said, Shockwave was the scariest Decepticon alive, and in IDW he was the big bad. Dangerous. So, yeah. So yeah, that's decade-old Transformers and Tom Taylor. That's my review.
Well, we got a couple of comments to go through real quick here. We got Beanie wants to confess her love for Clyde, Dick Dastardly, and Muttley.
Okay.
And then the Inner John universe is awesome. She his biggest little fan because of his shirts. So to see like the Scooby-Doo.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, this is my new this is one of my Christmas shirts. I got this for Christmas, and my book review tonight is kind of a weird, whimsical horror story. So I thought Scooby would be appropriate for it.
Yep. That would be perfect. And then Tom Taylor is very underrated. And Cliff, let me know what you think of DC versus Vampires. Well, you're going to be on. Y'all going to be on at the same time. Hopefully soon, y'all can have a whole conversation right here on the show about DC versus Vampires.
Yes, the first 2 issues I've read of it, I really like. I know what happens because it's an older book, and I'm really interested to see that. But I like what I've read, and the fact that Hal Jordan is running around killing everybody they don't want to become a vampire it fits along with what we've been talking about tonight. So,
well, I can't wait for you to get to the Skybound stuff. The Skybound G.I. Joes.
I'm looking forward to it. I've heard good stuff about it, and again, no spoilers. But if you were like me growing up watching the Super Friends and did not like the Wonder Twins, DC versus Vampires is for you.
No. I don't know what to think of you, because I'd rather have the Wonder Twins versus Wendy and Marvin.
I would too, but spoiler alert for a book that's over a year old. Hal Jordan dropped Zan in a blender. I mean, that's
yeah. I can see that. I can see that happening. So, but then again, Wendy and Marvin would stand no chance in a situation like that either.
No, I am also of that generation that grew up with the Cartoon Network little mini ads they had where they made fun of the Wonder Twins.
Yeah.
It's like, I could get beat by a sponge. It wouldn't even have to be an evil
sponge. They actually did. They made a mini series. It was under a Wonder imprint, they called it, for DC, for younger readers. And they really did a good treatment of the Wonder Twins. They wrote them better than I've ever seen them done, enough that you could really root for them, and a good setup about why they were on Earth to begin with and everything. So I had kind of very dismissive, just like you, Cliff, of like, yeah. But that really made me appreciate them more, especially when they prevented the Justice League. And they're just training. I mean, they're trainees. They're not like full-fledged members or anything. They're just trying to learn how to use their powers. But Mr. Mxyzptlk is trying to take over reality, and he's doing so much damage. The Justice League is like reduced to doing a kind of a reset of reality that might reset it and send him back to the 5th dimension, or there's a very small chance it might just destroy the entire universe. But he's doing so much damage that they're like, we've got to risk it. And the Wonder Twins are actually the ones that go, wait a minute, we have an option. Did you consider this? And they provide the answer but it was just a smart. They're young, they're inexperienced, and that is fully to be seen in the story. They're not making them any better than what they are, but they're also clever. And they're like, we have an idea. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it when a character especially a underused or underdog character gets that kind of a moment that's well written and taking out a major big gun that the other big guns they'd overlooked. This little simpler, more straightforward approach. So,
and it was a slow build to it too, because they build up how they got to the point where they figured out the solution.
Yeah. It was for young readers. It was a especially good run of stories with them. So
It was
down.
I'm sorry,
it
Joe.
was not pure superhero. It was more slice of life that led into their big superhero moment. It was almost like, they got their first training wheel bicycle, and they started riding and riding and riding. And when the time came to take the training wheels off, they were ready.
I'll have to track that down and check it out. I'm also mad at them because that's one of the few DC Universe Classic figures I don't have. Is the Wonder Twins, and it's because it was a San Diego exclusive, and if you get it with Gleek, it's like $1 million now. So how dare you?
Yep. Like, yeah, the Wonder Twins thing gutted me, and then Elaine and Wonder Twins suck. They suck. The original Jar Jar Binks, that's the Wonder Twins. Wow.
Ouch!
Oh.
Tell me how you really feel about Wendy and Marvin. I want to know that, because those are the two that I will die on a hill that they would say that they should have never existed in Super Friends history. They should have never been a part of that history.
But Wonder Dog was okay. Joe's like,
it's like, he could still be comedic relief. But they did not need Wendy and Marvin for the so-called PSA moments that they had in the show dealing with them.
Well, they had to tap into the Josie and the Pussycat fans at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. They had to have some teenage wannabe heroes there to kind of bring everything back to reality.
If they hadn't had Wendy and Marvin in the first season of Super Friends, you wouldn't have had Marvin making his appearance in Kingdom Come as a besotted barroom brawler guy. So,
or have them in Young Justice as a possible love interest for Connor.
There you go.
Yeah. That was the other thing that was like, what? I'm sorry. I have to put this one on the screen. She said, "What a dog is a dog title."
True, very true.
Well, wow. Why you got this Dynamite like that? Why you got this Dynamite? Dynamite and Blue Falcon, they were a great team.
Actually, read the one-shot crossover during those Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers crossovers with regular DC characters. One of the best ones ever written is Dynamite and the Super Sons. I'll just leave that right there. But you go find it and read it, and you will like Dynamite.
Hey, I was a Josie fan. Yeah, I would also love the Groovy Ghoulies. Yes.
There, Elaine, what do you think of that?
Yep.
Yes.
I got my Groovy Ghoulies cup for this review too. So,
my oldest and I have a soft spot in our hearts for the Adventures of the New Shmoo.
Yeah. Oh yes.
And the Thing.
Yes.
Oh no, we don't talk about Thing Ring, do your thing. That's forbidden. Thing Ring, do your thing. Or Big Group pops up. It's like, how in the world did I get here?
Or it came on Boomerang for a little while when my oldest was growing up. I know it was on when I was younger, but I didn't remember it in the Inch Eye, Private Eye.
Oh yeah.
That's some business right there.
Now, surprisingly enough, that made for an interesting case for Harvey Birdman, attorney at law, the discrimination case.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was going to tell you guys, I know Joe's not big on horror, but I don't know, Cliff, if you like horror movies very much or not. But we watched. It's on Apple Plus. We watched The Gorge with Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy and Sigourney Weaver. And if you're looking for just um, it's a sci-fi horror kind of thing, and it has, again, small cast. It's a very remote location, but it's one of those that I watched and then tried to figure out how to adapt it as a role play game for my horror game. Oh, excuse me, group. Um, it had a really good setup to it and a great payoff as far as action and stuff. Um, Suspend your disbelief because there's parts of it you go, well, that wouldn't work out, because it's fairly realistic up to a certain point, and then it kind of gets. I don't know that it's one of those horror movies where you're not really sure that the ones that made it through to the end would necessarily have made it through to the end if it was really as horrible as what it was made out to be. But they could. So, there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief right at the end. But I really like both of the leads. I really, ever since The Queen's Gambit, Taylor-Joy has been one of my favorite up-and-coming younger stars. So
we watched a movie with her in it on Netflix this past weekend. The Menu.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't as crazy horror as I usually like watching, but there were some scenes in it that I was like, I have to watch this again just for that. The foodie who they pulled into the kitchen and what they named his course. I rewound that about 5 times. It was hilarious. I mean, it was hilarious. But I want to watch Gorge because it popped up on YouTube as one of the things that I might be interested in. So I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. We've been watching For All Mankind on Apple Plus, so we've got that right now. So it was one of those. Well, okay, well, there it is. So, boom. But it just every once in a while, it's not a big. It's not like Nosferatu. It's not a huge, big production, but it just hits all the right smaller kind of horror movie sort of Creature from the Black Lagoon kind of vibe about it. So anyway, Joe, if you got my pictures.
Yep, I got your pictures, and they're up here mentioning Suzanne and how he didn't really feel like a genie here, and is that based on the Highland books?
The Gorge
books? Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, so it is picture time.
Yay! Okay, so I read again. I didn't get a lot of books this week. I got most of them were horror books, though. Horror things like the one I got online because it didn't come into the shop was The Seasons, #1, and the tag basically got me, but it's one of 6. Or no, I'm sorry, Seasons #1. It's an ongoing, supposed to be, as far as I can tell. Published by Image Comics, $3.99. The writer is Rick Remender. The art is by Paul Azaceta. The colors by Matthias Lopez. And the letters are done by Russ Wooten. It is rated Teen Plus. So this is the cover that Joe's got up here. And as you can see, it has sort of a circus, a carnival element about it. So let's see the next page here, Joe, please. So you have this city that's just been left in ruins, more or less. People captivated by something they're holding in their hands that look like mirrors. And a dog running loose, trying to figure out what's what. And next page. And yeah, the carnival's packing up and leaving town. And the dog is not happy about. I don't think he really minds them leaving. I don't think he liked them coming in the first place from the way he's acting. Next page. Okay. So now we have a speedy delivery driver. She's a messenger. Her name is Spring Seasons, and she's after that letter. Next page. And she's still after that letter. It will not get away from her because Seasons is a girl, or Spring Seasons is a girl on a mission. Because she saw before that she lost the letter that it's addressed to her. So she's messengering her own letter. Next page. But just as she's finally, and there's several pages of chasing and almost catching and not quite getting the letter, and birds flying and swooping down and picking it up, and her climbing fences to get over to get it. And she finally has it in her hands, as you can see. And clang, the circus is in town. And they basically stand right in front of her. Next page. And as you can see, it's one of those like really, really tall stilt clowns who looks down and switches her face from frowny to smile. Next page. And gives her a flower that Spring does not necessarily appreciate before she tatas her on her way as the circus comes into town.
Good expression on the middle panel, though.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very good expression, and that was the last one.
Yeah, she's not won over by this flower gesture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so go back to so what we've got here. This was a project that they got working on together, and apparently the writer and the artist kind of, I think, where they first teamed up was The Punisher. They did a Punisher series together, which
the new Punisher, the new Punisher, the one that was supposed to replace Frank Castle.
Well, that was Pepos wrote part of that, so this isn't him. So I'm not really sure which iteration of the Punisher or which run that they did, but they have both had that on their lists of things. So I was like, okay, so they, because this is so far from the Punisher, this is so different than the Punisher that I was like, okay, you can paint me surprised. But they, in an afterword in the book, Remender says that it's 2020. They've been told to put their pens down, because we're not sure how we're going to distribute comics, and just put your pens down for now. We're not going to be making anything. Meanwhile, they're battling the daily downer of doom scrolling, and it's a pandemic, and nobody knows what's going to happen. And so this storyline came out of that, and that in itself gives it a certain amount of redemptive healing factor, because rather than doom scroll and just put their pens down, they began working on this because they wanted to. Rick Remender, he says that shares in the afterword that this became more of a creative family coming together than just a creative team. And the result is a weird blend that I would call a whimsical horror tale that they have set as an homage to adventure tales like Tintin and Winsor McCay's Little Nemo. So in that first issue, we see that delivery worker, young Spring Seasons, in truly ironic fashion. The letter that's addressed to her has been given for delivery, and she's trying to get it after the wind whips it away from her. One frantic bicycle chase across the neighborhood of the city of Gallia reveals several things about the young lady. First, that everyone knows who she is. They know her. She's in her neighborhood, or her fame is widespread. But that might not be in the best way that they know her, because it's more in the way that you recognize a chaotic force in nature who's friendly, but now coming your direction. And rather than get caught up in their funnel cloud of discord, you just kind of veer off their damage path. That's the kind of the Spring Seasons apparently carries that sort of a reputation in the community. Also, we get to see that Gallia, and as you saw from the other city, I'm not really sure what time period this is set in. It looks kind of old-fashioned. The names of the places are not, I don't believe, actual place names in our world. So there's definitely earlier era kind of a feel about it. But once Spring captures the wayward letter, she finds that it's been sent to her by her sister. Her sister is a reporter named Autumn Seasons. So Autumn has been investigating the disappearance of their parents. They were the famous owners and operators of the Seasons Detective Agency. And 10 years earlier, while they were on a case, they disappeared. That left their 4 daughters, the Seasons sisters, to fend for themselves and make their own way. And they've done that ever since. The good news is Autumn has found a lead. The bad news is that lead came from covering a story about a town that has completely vanished, as in no communications coming in, no communications coming out. It sounds like probably that village that we saw at the beginning of the story. Those responsible know that she's onto them, and so they're after Autumn. More, they're also in pursuit of all the Season sisters, not only Spring and Autumn, but also their sisters, Winter and Summer. So Autumn instructs Spring to gather up Summer and Winter and run before, quote, they get there. But even as Spring is reading the letter, that strange circus arrives in Gallia. And she, automatically gets the vibes that this is not good, and with good reason, because, they were the last ones to play the other town that is now left in ruins. So the good. The spirit of Nemo and Tintin's style are certainly present in this story. Remender has tapped into what I'm going to call inadvisable adventure. There are elements too ridiculous for realistic adventure tales, but which work beautifully with the proper suspension of disbelief because they carry a certain charm. For example, so Spring is working as a bicycle messenger service, but she brings along her fish, Gilbert. He's in a bowl on the back of the bicycle, strapped on. Now, seeing how Spring navigates pedestrians and traffic, one might assume that this is not a good idea, and one would be right. She has to. There are times when she has to panic stop and catch the fish when he sloshes out of his enclosure, which she does. And she also has a running conversation with Gilbert. It is one-sided, so we can't hear his side. We assume it's just her talking to the fish and he can't talk back. But I'm not altogether sure she can't hear him because that's the sort of story it is. It's a comic book charm that reminds me of the best Golden Age Captain Marvel stories, as well as McKay's and Hergé's work. And like all of these characters, the villains may seem silly or frivolous, yet they pose real danger to our heroes. Mr. Mind, Cliff, may indeed be just a lowly worm with glasses and a speakerphone thing that he can make his voice heard, but he's the world's wickedest worm, and his schemes never let you forget just how evil and twisted he is. The circus seems to be an embodiment of similar menace. Mirthful, certainly, but in the kind of mirthful way that they would, let you enjoy yourself to death as they gleefully watch this and stoke the flames beneath you higher as you laugh yourself into oblivion. So the running interactions with Spring's neighbors, as well as the letter chase itself, are all handled with the same reckless fun. The places that the letter lands and gets moved from, just as Spring almost reaches it several times, is the stuff that Harold Lloyd made classic in his silent film stunts. Paul Azacetta's art, it teeters between the over-the-top center ring circus trappings, and those are beautifully colored by Matthias Lopez, the welcoming street scenes of a picturesque town, and the stark realism of damage left behind in the last town that the circus played. And that's a tricky balance, but I think he does it quite well. He maintains it throughout the book. He also captures the season in each of the sisters' countenances, starting with the fresh face of Spring. She looks the part that Remender has written, and every expression, every action cries out impetuous youth. So based on glimpses of the other season sisters, I think we're going to probably see each of them written and drawn in ways that embody those corresponding seasons of the year. The bad. Okay, when you've got fish strapped onto a bicycle that the girl's having a running conversation with as she teeters and totters through traffic without spilling him out permanently. That's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. That whole inadvisable adventure spirit would not suit everybody. Like if you struggled with Indiana Jones using a life raft to survive a fall from a plane in Temple of Doom, and then you nearly had a stroke when he saved himself from a nuclear explosion with a lead-lined refrigerator, you're going to have trouble with this, with this whimsical kind of seasons storyline. If the charm of Fawcett's Golden Age superheroes is lost on you, and you're just dying for somebody to take it to them and just realistically run with it, with the Shazam fan, you need to go get a trade paperback of Miracle Man and then get caught up on any episodes of The Boys rather than test drive this issue, probably. But if you're looking for something different, this definitely has that whimsical horror element to it. And if you're a mutant like me who likes the dark stuff and the trippingly light, lithe tales sometimes, this I think will work probably in ways suiting both sides of your tastes. If so, you should give the season's number 1 a read, because we may not be in a pandemic now, but the world can always use brightening up. A story like this, one that isn't packed with seamless logic and hard facts, it might be the perfect escape from your everyday. I can definitely see how crafting it beamed a ray of sunshine into the lives of the creative team and the friends that Remender calls his creative family for this book. And that's why the season's number 1 gets my score of 7.5 bicycle fish bowls out of 10.
That's interesting. You got 10 out of that.
Yeah, I can see where there's a spirit of Tintin in some of it. That inadvisable adventure I get from him, that kind of this, he's got a dog with him. That shouldn't work in all cases, although it's classic. But there are times when the things that they face, you're like, yeah, okay, that doesn't seem like a really realistic solution to it, but it works for them. It has a charm about it. And I think that this carries some of that too.
The scene where she's chasing the letter through town gives me Studio Ghibli vibes. It reminds me of Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, yeah.
I could see something like that. I was seeing stuff like Mr. Magoo during that whole chase.
Yes. And I think that we'll see more of the Nemo side of things, because I think the circus is some kind of, it changes reality, perhaps. You definitely get that menacing, that brightened and trippingly menacing vibe about them. Spring gets it right away. So I think it'll be that kind of they'll have both whimsical elements, but horror, which is even more than horror comedy. That's a strange combo to me. But
makes for interesting adventures, and then she says, if you hate the strap-on fish, then you most certainly hate Cat in the Hat. Cat in the Hat was actually fun. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it worked for Clutch Cargo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go. True.
Yeah, straight out of Something Wicked, This Way Comes.
Yeah, I definitely the circus thing. When I'm writing a story that's got a twisted, weird circus in it, so I was like, ooh, yeah.
Maybe it was just the way that the smile changed in that scene. Also, because remember, it's like they came and it's like the man on stilts had a frown, and he goes like this, and it's smiling. He didn't touch his face or anything. Nothing moved. It was just automatic. It reverses itself, and it's like the mask would not accommodate for that.
True.
So how many issues? Like, what happened? I'm going like, what happened at that point?
How many issues of that's out now?
This is the first one this week. Or I think it was. Yeah, that was maybe last week, because before a new comic book day, I got it online, so it must have been last week. But
yeah, the only I've read some of Rick Remender's Black Science for Image, and I liked it, so I might have to try this.
I have read some of his stuff. Nothing that really stood out like, oh, that make it like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I picked this up. But I recognize the name. I have read some of his things before. But I really like the story. He did a nice job of saying what it meant to his people to have this story to work on when they weren't, where they could have otherwise just had nothing to fill their days. So,
yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, Black Science is a good Challengers of the Unknown Johnny Quest type story.
Ooh,
so I'll have to check this one out too.
Issue 2 comes out next week. So on the 26th, issue 2 comes out. So only issue 1 is out. That was on January 29th. That issue 1 came out.
Okay.
And these covers look interesting, by the way.
Yeah, I don't
kind of get you guys in the aspect of what I was looking at here. So those are the covers. So issue 2 is scheduled for the 26th of February. Issue 3 is March 26th, and the last issue I believe is April 9th.
And see, I kept trying to find if it had like numbers of issues, and I never did see a number thrown up there, so I thought maybe it was ongoing, but I don't know.
Well, I'm on League of Comic Geek, so this information could be wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I take it with a grain of salt. It's not 100% accurate, but League of Comic Book Geeks is, if you have like anybody that's pulling books for you online, this is the place to go.
I'll probably wait for the trade on it. Much to my wife's delight, a lot of books I'm on the shelf with, I end up just trying to trade before I get the floppies. Of course, I'm sure she probably wished I'd just go straight digital at this point. But
do you have Hoopla down there in your library system?
I think we do. I have to double check on that. We recently just got the little girls their library cards because we're homeschool parents now, and the library's more fun than the kitchen is. So I'll have to double check, but I think we do.
That's a good source because we have a really good graphic novel section in our library, but there's so many graphic novels out there that sometimes if I just want to check something out real fast, go on Hoopla and you get so many rentals a month and plug it in and boom, have it right there. You read it and sometimes, and it's a good way to go, oh, I'm glad I didn't pay any money for that. Other times it's a test drive. So if you're like, ooh, I need to go find an A-book copy of that now. So
yeah, I was that way about Transformers. So we were just talking about it. I decided on a whim to start reading it. So I found it online and it's like, now this is something I'd like to go back and reread. And of course, all the IDW stuff's out of print now. Just cut off my arms and legs to buy those. So,
if there's a will, there's a way. I know I could. If I actually start going back for Transformers for IDW, I know I can do it rather quickly. Yeah, but the price tag would be the problem. The price tag would be a problem. But
yeah, some of the individual issues are pretty pricey, and because they're out of print, the big hardcovers are out of print, and they're, oh my gosh, I might as well just sell my car.
I was like, I was going to crack another joke. It's like, yeah, don't ever dare tell your wife about what Stan Lee says about digital.
I'm kind of the old curmudgeon. I'm not 100% down on digital books yet, but for some reason I don't mind reading manga digitally. I don't know why. It might be because that's my first exposure to manga, was reading it online to begin with. Obviously besides watching anime. So I don't know, but yeah, most of my manga is digital. That and also the individual floppies are, like anywhere from $10 to $20 a pop. And if you're like me and you like ongoing series like My Hero, that gets up there after a while. So,
but you have to understand what they consider a floppy is what we consider 9 times out of 10 a graphic novel.
Yeah, because theirs come out in like Shonen Jump and stuff, but
Those are volumes, thick, 100+ page volumes that you're getting. So
yeah, I collected almost all of Attack on Titan and all of Bleach in the big volumes, and I was like, I can't. I have no space for them, and this is hurting my wallet too much. They're not holding the line at $2.99 anymore with DC books, so I can't do that.
So that's one of the reasons why I didn't try to start collecting a series that I really want to have in my collection, manga wise. But I will settle for the Blu-ray.
Mm.
Where is it here? I just had it a second ago. This is the series that I want to get in manga volumes, because if you know anything about this series anime wise, it's incomplete.
Mm.
And if you know why it's incomplete, then you understand why getting the manga books is so important.
Mm.
For those who don't know what it is, it's Dead Man Wonderland.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
The anime version of Dead Man Wonderland was canceled because the majority of the animators that was doing this was also doing Attack on Titan.
Mm.
So they wrapped this one up before they actually got to the end.
Mm.
And the end of this is completely different than what happened in the manga.
Yeah, my oldest is more into manga, and she just recently started reading Hellsing. Back in the day,
she's gonna have fun with Hellsing.
Yeah, and I
have fun with Hellsing.
I tried to explain to her because she wanted to watch the anime, and I was like, "Do not watch the original anime. It's completely different than the manga. Watch the new Hellsing Ultimate
Hellsing.
Yeah,
just like if she gets into dang it, I can't even think of the name of it here, with the Elric brothers. Oh, Full Metal Alchemist. She has to watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, because Brotherhood follows the manga. The original series does not.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into that one. I'm trying to avoid getting her into Berserk, but I think that's on her list to read next.
No, that's a little bit too graphic. That's too graphic for her.
I'm like, I don't care if you're 23. Please don't read this. I don't want to know you read it.
You're
that's
still
a little
the
bit
baby.
Too graphic for her. Berserk is a little bit too graphic. But my calling card into like the anime manga always goes back to the old school stuff. So I like stuff like Captain Harlock, Macross, and the one that really got me into it, Lupin the Third.
Yeah, I always go back to the old Transwar Z show. I know it's Mazinger, but I grew up with Transwar Z.
We got Transwar Z. That's where it's going to stay. But Mazinger, the story was told differently.
And it Fist of the North Star, which was my favorite animated movie forever. And then when I found out how much different it was than the manga and the original anime, it broke my heart. I was so sad.
That the one movie that they did was so perfect that the actual universe was miles away from how that series was in the movie. It was. I mean, I could say the same thing about we called it Star Blazers, but it's called Battleship Yamato.
Battleship, yep. Yeah. I didn't see as much of that because it wasn't on down here as much, but I remember Star Blazers. I remember it because I remember for the longest time, a lot of those animes that got imported over here, all the space battle scenes and the spaceships looked like Voltron and Star Blazers and the original Robotech Macross. All of the big battleships kind of looked alike. I always remember that.
Yeah.
Of course, I feel bad. I've gotten into Solo Leveling is my new anime I found, and a lot of people I get a lot of grief from the old people friends I have because it's one of those somebody sucked into a different world animes that they make all the time now. But I like Solo Leveling. It's a good show.
Well, it can't be as bad as what was it called? It just wrapped up not too long ago on like Cartoon Network.
Overlord.
Mm-mm. The one with Kiriko, that the so-called Sword Art Online.
Sword Art.
It can't be as bad as that.
Mm.
That story went on way too longer than what it needed to be.
Mm.
Sword Art Online was just like, why is this constantly going on?
It's kind of like, it's like in Dragon Ball, how long is it going to take for Planet Namek to blow up? We need to move on now. It's been 5 minutes.
They literally said, he literally said, Planet Namek is going to be destroyed in 5 minutes. 40 episodes later, we're still within those 5 minutes.
That's like, that was like my oldest and I gave up on Dragon Ball Super when they got to the final tournament because it was always, there's 17 minutes left in the tournament. And we'll look at the counter and there's, like 12 more episodes to go. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. I can't.
It wasn't as bad. Super was not as bad.
No, it wasn't.
As original Z. Z was really bad with it.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not, but the urban legend was they had to drag out all that was Frieza because they'd gotten ahead of the manga and the anime. And so they were giving Toriyama more time.
That is accurate. That is accurate because a lot of times it's weird how they animate faster than produce the actual paper version of it. It's just weird.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like the new trend with because my youngest daughters are big into Demon Slayer. And what they'll do to give more time for the manga is they'll do a season of the show, and then the next story arc they'll make a movie. And then they'll go into another season. So they space it out further and have more time. I really like the fact that they do that. Mainly because I grew up in my favorite character in Dragon Ball was Broly, and none of the movies fit in with the series. So I was that hurt my soul too when I got older and realized that. So I like the fact now that the movies are part of the story. So
they rewrote Broly. They rewrote a couple of the Broly movies, and I like the rewrites a lot better.
I didn't like Dragon Ball Super Broly. That I didn't like that one at all.
That one I actually liked because it was the continuation of what actually happened with him and his father.
Yeah.
Now, for him to be exiled the way that he did and the way that he was living, yeah, that's just a little bit cruel. But for him to find out how Frieza did everybody, and the fact that he loses it, and it almost got to the point where Whis almost had to step in. that to me is like, that goes to show you how powerful Broly was.
Yeah, I like the original movie where he was basically like the love child between pre-Crisis Superman and the Hulk.
Yeah,
where he was just unstoppable. That was my favorite one. So,
but that's the reason why I like the Super one, because it showed why he was the love child between the two, because of what his dad put him through. It's like, no, you got to learn how to survive, and he literally whooped the mess out of him. It was not as bad as what Omni-Man did in Invincible, but it came close.
Yeah.
But we're at our 2-hour mark here, so we need to start wrapping everything up here. One other quick thing here, since we mentioned Dragon Ball, the one thing that I want to see with Broly is that I want Broly to at least meet Kefla.
That would be fun.
His female counterpart.
That would be fun. Yeah. That my girls play the game, and it's the two versions of Broly, and Kefla is their team they always play with. So I would like to see that,
because I would have never thought that Kefla would have been a female equivalent to Broly, especially as soft spoken as she was.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, she lost it? It's like, okay, she lost it. It's like, okay, she finally got in soup. Whoa, wait a second. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yes.
And then she's talking about, yeah, Mr. Popo ain't black anymore. Yeah, she's talking about Dragon Ball Z.
Team 4-star.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So let's go ahead and wrap everything up here. We're going to start with you, Cliff. Let people know where they can find you outside of the show here.
Olive Branch, Mississippi, in my house.
Just in the house.
Every once in a while, you may find me on Facebook, but I won't be there long. So, my wife is a social butterfly. If you want to check her out, she's Micah Riley on Facebook. Mainly, she posts pictures of our kids nonstop, and I just like stuff every once in a while. So, I'm rather boring.
I wouldn't say that. You got too much knowledge to be boring.
Yeah, you got 12 long boxes of not boring.
Yeah.
It's a gift and a curse.
All right. So that brings us over to Clyde.
Hey, well, I also have 12 long boxes of not boring, but I am Clyde Hall, and some say an elder statesman of geekery. Follow me on Facebook at Clyde Hall or Radiating Positive Vibes with author Clyde Hall. Every day there's a post radiating positive vibes on both of those accounts, and every day we post something that we hope will make your day better. It could be mirth for the midweek, and we post memes that have made us laugh through the week. A lot of times we do on the weekends, we do like a retro weekend nostalgia plunge, old toys, old cartoons. We look at different museums sometimes or artworks through the week. So check that out. I'm on Blue Sky at captainaction.bsky.social, or you can check out my Amazon authors page right down here. I'm part of the comic book review squad at Comics Beat. It's an online comic book review source, but also they have all sorts of news. Some of the things we talked about tonight, I saw first on Comics Beat. So follow them, www.comicsbeat.com. And of course, I'm part of the Comic Book Spectrum podcast team here every Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central on YouTube. I'm an award-winning contributing writer at Stormgate Press with short stories in many of their new pulp anthologies like Major Marjorie, classic sci-fi type pulp, The Lost Adventures of Captain Hawkland, Aviator style action and adventure pulp, Spurs and Six Shooters, Tales of the Old West, obviously Western pulp stories. You can find all of the Stormgate Press releases, including the newest one, which is dedicated to classic pulp mystery men that we've made original new characters in the pulp style for Pulp Reality number 5. They're all available on Amazon, but you can also go to www.stormgatepress.com to see all of the things that we have from the past and all the things that will be coming out in the near future. Comic Book Spectrum is brought to you by one of our Stormgate Press alumni, artist extraordinaire, Jeffrey Hayes of Plasma Fire Graphics. He is a Pulp Factory award-winning artist several years running, and his covers illustrate why. In fact, you were just looking at some of them right here and right here. And Tim Bruckner's Major Marjorie cover, that's an award-winning cover right there. He also did one of my Captain Hawkland stories, The Banshee Barnstormer. For your next project, what you want is somebody that will do a cover that will bring people to your table, that will get you noticed. And Jeffrey Hayes can do that for you. Being both easy to work with and very affordable, those are just sidelights to the kind of buying that you can see your products achieve by having him do some work for you on the covers or the interior art of any kind of a related project. Even I think he would do well with games. I don't know that he's done a lot of games, but his illustrations certainly look like the sorts of things that I would look for in RPGs or gaming booklets. So Jeffrey Hayes is that artistic someone that you need in your corner. And now Joe's going to tell you how you can get Jeffrey Hayes and Plasma Fire Graphics working for you.
That is right, Clyde, because you saw what Clyde showed you here. I got a little bit of a video to show you to convince you even further. So take a gander at this.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
And there you have it. That is Jeffrey Hayes and Plasma Fire Graphics. Give him a quick little message over there at plasmafiregraphics.com or his Facebook group for Plasma Fire Graphics. As far as I am concerned, I will be back here on Saturday. Probably a little bit surly because we do have the Whatnot show that we're doing at 5 p.m. on Whatnot here. We will have some $1 auctions as well as our array of different books that is in our Buy It Now. As I stated before, we went more to a Buy It Now format for our Whatnot shows here. So there's not going to be as many $1 auction starts here. There's plenty of books to buy at reasonable prices and everything, and we'll probably be on from 5 to 6. We probably run longer than 6 if there's enough people buying here. But Saturday we'll be right back here for another episode from the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. We'll be talking about a couple more things publisher related on top of that, as well as giving you an update on what's going on with our books here at CGC Studios. So on that note, it's time for me to say, live life, grow, and be well. And unlike Brian K. Morris, I don't care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. Let's see you next week right here on Comic Book Spectrum. Until then, bye.